class, today we are going to be designing a map of ancient Egypt. We've been studying ancient Egyptian civilization for a while, and for all of us visual learners, which is something that I definitely am, something that will help us memorize the places in ancient Egypt is if we create a map on our own. So here I have a big white poster board, and we've been discussing mostly the New Kingdom. The New Kingdom of Egypt, which extended from 1549 BC to 1069. So first, what we're going to do is we're going to outline the region. Okay, so in order to orient ourselves, we're going to start with the major areas, and this is the Mediterranean Sea. So Mediterranean Sea. Since this is the Mediterranean, this is going to be the Red Sea. It's always helpful to me to start with the bodies of water. So we have the Mediterranean, we have the Red Sea. So now we can start labeling these masses of land. Here we have Egypt, here is the Sinai Peninsula, and this is the Arabian Peninsula. So I'm going to start off with Arabian Peninsula. Then this little piece that extends into the Red Sea, we know is the Sinai. The time frame that we're studying, which is the New Kingdom, is actually the time where ancient Egypt was at its greatest geographic expansion. So it was the largest that it has ever been. So in order to locate that on the map, I'm going to use the color red to differentiate that. So at this point, Egypt looked somewhat So this was Egypt. It wasn't only in the African continent, it was also, remember, in the Middle East. As we've been studying in our class, the major geographic feature of Egypt is the Nile River. And the Nile runs from all the way north of Egypt to the south. And it starts somewhere about here. To recognize it, and notice that I'm drawing it outside of the border is because the river continues to flow even outside of Egypt. And as we've also discussed in class, even though this is the major direction, the flow of the Nile, the river had many tributaries from the Mediterranean, and then many trajectories in the south where it spread. So it looked somewhat like this. So in the north, all the tributaries to the Nile are what we call the Nile Delta. So I'm going to mark that on here, Delta. And another thing that we should probably discuss in the beginning is how the north and south of Egypt were labeled or termed during this period. And it's actually interesting because the north was called the lower and the south was called upper. So don't be confused just because lower is in the north and upper Egypt was in the south. Those are some things that you just have to remember. So we have a pretty basic outline here of our region, but just to get a little more specific and include the cities that we've been studying along the Nile, we can go ahead and start filling them in. also very important because here we have the Dead Sea, which we know is by current Israel, but at the time this area was just known as Gaza. Okay, we have a pretty good outline here of our region. Class, and as you can see, all of our major cities are located along the Nile, which just goes to show you that the Nile was the backbone of ancient Egyptian civilization.